Good afternoon, everybody, and happy to see so many people join the session today. Simon here from careermap.co.uk, and welcome to our third live webinar today for day 3 of National Apprenticeship Week 2021. Today we're joined by Amavir from Network Rail. Amavir will be speaking today about Network Rail's exciting apprenticeship opportunities. And so before we begin, if we can all look to the right of the presentation screen, you'll see a chat facility. We are live, so ask questions at any time. Feel free to make comments about the presentation, and there will be time at the end for a full Q&A session. So, Amavir, many thanks for joining us today. Before you begin the presentation, could you introduce yourself and give us a bit of an overview of your role within Network Rail?
Hi everyone, my name's Amavir and I'm a talent acquisition manager at Network Rail. And essentially what this means is I work specifically in the graduate and apprentice recruitment team, and my job is to basically get the message out that we're what Network Rail do, what our apprenticeship's all about. Hopefully in the ultimate aim of having some of you good folks here today go on to apply for our apprenticeship scheme at Network Rail. Fab, right. Without further ado, in that case, just a massive thank you to everyone for attending today's event. Today what I'll be doing is I'll be speaking about Network Rail, our engineering scheme, but also I'll be trying to give you some recruitment hints and tips along the way that will not only benefit you with applying for our in schemes, but also any others that you might be looking at. So as mentioned, we'll be looking to try and I'll be looking to offer some more general tips, hints and advice, as well as letting you know exactly what you need to apply for our apprenticeship scheme. So first and foremost, who are we and who is Network Rail? So we're a customer focused organisation and we're striving to put the passengers at the heart of all our operations. We own and operate Britain's railway infrastructure, which is around 20,000 miles of track, 30,000 bridges, tunnels and viaducts. And we're in an industry that's ever growing, with more and more demand being placed on the UK's railway, and we are the safest railway in Europe. We have over 3,500 types of roles growing, spanning right across our organisation. And contrary to popular belief, we do not drive trains. Instead, what we do is we operate and manage all of the infrastructure around, and we're going through a massive modernisation programme at the moment, sort of bringing over the old Victorian railway which we had and bringing it right up to the 21st century, which is where your specialisms and your expertise will be which is where we'll be training and developing you in the future. So our apprenticeship scheme as a whole. So it's a level 3 engineering apprenticeship scheme, and it takes 3 years to complete. Throughout these 3 years, there's a mix of theory-based classroom work, some practical workshops, and then you'll be taking these skills out to a local depot, working in a local team alongside experienced colleagues to put the learning and the things that you've been understanding and practicing into real life. Throughout the scheme, you'll attend a variety of follow-up training sessions and workshops to continue to develop your skills as you put them in practice. You'll be employed just like a regular employee, so you also get all the benefits that everyone at Network Rail receives, whether that's a railway pension, a variety of different discounts and benefits such as money off phone contracts, money off Nando's, even just money off your shopping, essentially. But ultimately, the end goal of our apprenticeship scheme is not only will you have been paid to learn and train and develop your skills, but you will be coming out with a recognised qualification at the end of it. Typically, this is the level 3 engineering technician apprenticeship, and you'll also be coming out with a railway engineering qualification also. Now, in order to thrive and do well on our apprenticeship scheme itself, there's a couple of skill sets that we think are especially important. The first of which is having a desire to learn and working hard. Now, what you'll find on the apprenticeship scheme is because you'll be doing a little bit of juggling And of course, the support mechanisms will be in place with tutors and coaches and development staff. You really do have to want to complete your coursework on time, get your theory bits out the way, ultimately, so then you're able to progress and pass on through your apprenticeship scheme itself. On top of that, because you'll be working in a life safety environment with the live rail alongside you, being able to communicate, work together as part of a team is especially important, none more so than from a safety perspective, and making sure that we keep everyone home, we keep everyone safe. Now, as part of the apprenticeships process and our actual, when we're assessing people through the process, this is designed to try and make sure the people that we ultimately take on are able to exhibit some of these strengths. So if you are a person who is able to work well in a team, can display good communication skills, and have that desire to learn, understanding that is the thing that we're after is something that will help you to go far in our apprenticeship scheme and our recruitment process. Similarly, when you're applying for different roles, having an idea of exactly what the employer's after, what sort of skill sets are important to them, understanding whether you are able to offer those skills, and then having that at the back of your mind as you go through each bit of the recruitment process is often a great way to ensure that you do well in the recruitment process. Now, aside from the base skills that we ask for in terms of being a good communicator and working hard, etc., we don't ask you to have too much by way of previous experience or previous knowledge about engineering or the railway in general. The reason why is because as part of the apprenticeship scheme, we will be teaching you everything you need to know. So if you have no railway background, and most of our apprentices do not, please do not worry. We will make sure we give you all the skills, the qualifications, the teaching, the know-how to make sure you're then able to really go on and kick on with your career. Now, in terms of qualifications specifically for our scheme, before I get on to the nitty-gritty of the recruitment process. So what we ask for is 3 GCSEs, grade 9 to 5 or A to C in English, one other subject, and either a science or an engineering equivalent. We also then ask for a GCSE grade 9 to 4 in maths. And the reason we ask for a slightly higher qualification on the maths side of things is some of the coursework is more focused around maths and is more intense around the numbers side of things. Now, there are a whole host of different qualifications that we accept, BTEC equivalents, functional skills, etc. And if anyone possesses some of those qualifications, Network Rail Apprenticeship is quite a few different levels of equivalents that we do accept. And as mentioned here, even though we need these qualifications because of the intensity of the maths side of things, but everything else we do pretty much teach you, and we will support you as we will build you up from the beginning, and just each year we'll teach you more and more and more and more. Now, on to the application process itself. So our process is a 3-step process. This involves a Match Me quiz, an online application, a situational judgment test, and an assessment centre. So, when it comes to applying, and before I go into each of the specific areas of the recruitment process, something that is really good to do and will really sort of stand you at good ease either with Network Rail or any other employer is making sure you have a good look at our website first. When you take the time out and have a good, It doesn't need to be an insane amount of time, but if you are able to take a good half an hour to an hour time to do a bit of research into the company, this will help twofold. Not only will it help you to find out more about the organization, the job, the roles that you want to apply for, but it will also help you to understand what the culture is like at the company. What do they prioritize, and does that fit in with your own personal values and beliefs? For example, if you're looking for a company that ensures you have a good work-life balance, or is it potentially a company that's more cutting edge, which might be more financially lucrative? And for different people, different things will attract them, but it's very much a two-way process for you to understand not only what the employer wants, but do you want what the employer can offer? Now, most online tests, what they usually start with, so if we go with Network Rail's process to begin with, so our process starts with an application form. And again, all we ask for is pretty basic information: who you are, where you're from, phone number, basic contact details, etc. Now, that's not too difficult, and that's all about you just putting your grades, just so we know that you've got the right qualifications to meet the minimum criteria, and therefore not waste your time if you don't further down the process. We then start with a situational judgment test. Now, most companies do also offer a situational judgment test, and what these tend to be is you'll be asked a scenario and there'll be 4 answers, and what you'll be asked to do is to rate what you'd be most likely to do versus what you'd be least likely to do. Often there's not a time limit with these, but you do tend to have to get it done in one go. Now, again, this links back to my previous point about if you are able to have a look at the website first, understand the company, you'll then begin to see what does the company prioritize themselves, what's important to them, and then you'll be able to bring those into your answers. For example, if a company is really big on being environmentally friendly and sustainable, and the questions that they ask, some questions offer a more sustainable or a more environmentally focused approach, it may be beneficial for you to rank those higher in comparison to the other choices. Similarly, at Network Rail, we have quite a strong emphasis on safety, as long as we have several values, and ensuring you understand those prior to answering the question can really help you do well in the actual SJT. On top of that, there's a couple of other tips that I'd like to give, and this is a bit more about the SJT is about us understanding what your own priorities are and answering things that feel most natural to you is usually the best way to go. So try not to overthink it and try and go with, often we tend to find your first answer is usually the most accurate to the way you feel, and when people try to overthink it, that's when they can sometimes get themselves in a bit of a sticky situation and not do as well. And before you start, do give yourself do check that the tech is working, make sure you've got strong internet signal, make sure that your laptop's fully charged, because the last thing you want is for something to take you off your mojo while you're there focusing on exactly what the SJT is asking for. Now, talking about assessment centres, because of COVID-19, the world of assessment centres has changed a little bit. And what it's looking like is this year and potentially next year too, depending on what happens with the face of the country and everything that's going on with lockdowns. Virtual assessment centres will probably continue to be the norm for a little while longer. As part of that, you'll tend to be asked a couple of activities to complete, and then there'll be a face-to-face interview also. The whole point of these assessment centres, and they can be a little bit daunting because of the activities we ask and the amount of stuff that you yourselves would have to do as you apply, is we're looking for how well you understand the company, how keen you are to want to work for Network Rail, why you want to go on to work for Network Rail, what's so good about the apprenticeship that's really drawing you in. But also, one of the best things about it is, again, it's a two-way process. You'll have the chance to speak to people who work at the business, current apprentices, and usually that's the best way to pick their brains in terms of how are they finding it, what do they enjoy about it, and it's a really great way for you to understand whether it's for you. The one thing I do try and focus on is, whilst these can be really daunting days, we try and make the day as enjoyable as possible. And certainly ourselves, we don't try and ask any trick questions, anything that's designed to essentially pull you off or trip you up, so to speak. So, some basic tips. Don't just look at the website, look at the main site too. Understand the wider context about Network Rail and what we're trying to achieve and what our goals are. One of the ways that candidates tend to do well, and it really shows, and those that really get on and essentially get offered, are candidates who are able to take the skills that they're doing in life, and that doesn't need to necessarily be work experience. So this could be at school, this could be at hobbies, this could be volunteering, part-time jobs, previous careers. Those people who are able to articulate that you're not just, for example, playing football five-a-side with your friends. What you're doing is you're showing teamwork skills, you're showing good communication skills, you might be showing organization to make sure a game kicks off at a certain time against another opponent. And those people that are able to basically bring in and articulate the skills that they've picked up and developed outside of in their own personal lives, and are able to bring that into the interview, into the questions, are the ones that tend to do really well and tend to progress further. Now, the other thing to mention is similar to the previous example. Check your tech, make sure the Wi-Fi is working, make sure you've got a mic in the laptop that's working. If not, have you got some headphones to hand just in case? Is the battery filled? But one thing I would say, and as someone who has also ran these interviews themselves, is things do go wrong. It's just the nature of a virtual environment that we're in at the moment. So a lot of companies, such as ourselves, we do have plan Bs and plan Cs in place. So should you find, for whatever reason, there's a local power cut, for example, just as you go on to do your assessment centre, do not let this put you off. We can either call you, we can either rearrange another date. It isn't the end of the world. Often we find sometimes candidates who, for example, midway through an interview, their connection cuts out, and then they try to connect back in and we give them a call, but they're already too busy stressing about the situation that's just happened, and sometimes that can really throw them off their performance at the interview. So what I would say is expect things to go wrong, and if they do, take them in your stride. No one will mark you down for a loss of internet connection. Please don't let that ruin your focus, if that makes sense. And again, at assessment centres, what we're looking is just to see how you approach challenges, how you deal with change, how you work with others, how you build relationships, how you make decisions. So again, if you're able to have a think of some of these areas and think about how you're delivering what you're doing your lives at the moment that relate to some of these topics, think about how you could almost put these as examples as part of interview questions which you might be asked. But also think about what motivates you, what enthuses you, why do you want to do this, Why do you want to work for the certain employer? What really gets you up in the morning? And if you're able to sort of really display and show that energy, we tend to find those are the candidates that do really well. And as mentioned, the tech, always check the tech and don't worry if it goes wrong, because it always will. So do not worry. The other thing I'd like to say that those candidates that do well, it's very usually clear when someone has taken a bit of time to do a bit more thorough research about the company or about the scheme, as opposed to those do not. And if so, therefore, if in your interview, when you talk about why you want to work for a particular company, if there's something that's recently happened, say for example in the news, say for example something on the website, and you're able to bring in a little nugget or two just to show that you've done a bit of additional research, this can only hold you in good stead in the interview, because it shows that you've been proactive and you understand what the company's about, and it helps you to go above and beyond what others might say in the interview also. And finally, the biggest tip that I can give is for you to relax, take a deep breath, compose yourself before you begin the interview, and just remember, if you're not able to articulate the things that you want to, we're only seeing you for a 30-minute to 1 hour slot for your assessment center or your interviews. And if you're not able to show the best of yourself in that time frame, or you're not able to say all the things that you wanted to, this is the only chance you have to really interact with somebody on a face-to-face perspective. So really try and give it your all and show them what you've got. Right, now I'll be doing a quick Q&A. So if anyone has any questions, whether related to assessment center processes, recruitment processes, or network rail in general, please feel free to pop them into the chat.
Thanks, Amavir. I hope everyone found that useful. Just a quick one from me, Amavir, about the assessment centre. Obviously, with COVID, it's all online, but hopefully with the vaccine and stuff, maybe next year, what happens in a sort of normal time? Do you know, when it's sort of face to face, what sort of activities will the guys potentially do at a location, if that makes sense?
Sure, that's a great question, Simon. So what will happen in, I guess, a post-COVID world, fingers crossed that's sooner rather than later, is you'll be invited to a network rail office that typically tends to be relatively local to where you're living. And what would happen is, on the day itself, there'll be a couple of activities that you'll be asked to do. Now, the first of which is usually a group exercise. And the idea behind this group exercise is to show this is really your chance to show how you work in a team. Are you able to get along with others? Can you work together to sort of achieve a common goal? Are you able to bring others into the conversation? Are you able to be persuasive without being too dominating of the group? So that's the sort of group element of it. It's really about showing us in a simulated scenario that you're able to work with others effectively. The second part of it would then usually be some sort of presenting task. Now, this tends to be something based around, in previous years, something that you're interested in, or whether there's a particular passion that you have. And the benefit behind this is for us to test your communication skills, just to see if you're able to articulate yourself well. Can you come across well? Can you present clearly? And then, are you able to answer a few questions about your topic of choice? It's nothing we try to catch candidates out on, but we just want to see and double check what they're like in a dialogue, if that makes sense. And then the final side of things, in terms of an assessment center, will usually be an interview. And this, again, I think the one thing to reiterate, this isn't a Dragon's Den type style interview where you'll be getting roasted and bombarded with questions. The people that agree to be assessors at these interviews, they're usually volunteers who work at Network Rail, often senior managers who were ex-apprentices themselves. And most people volunteer to get involved with these assessment centres because they love it. They love getting a chance to see people who might be new apprentices, some fresh ideas, some people with a bit of fresh energy. And the main focus of the interview is for us to see how well you can do, but it's a very encouraging atmosphere. So if you weren't to understand a question or you weren't sure of something, we'd happily elaborate, if that makes sense. We're not here to ask you any crazy off the wall questions. We really just want to see you do as well as you can.
Okay. Thanks, Amavir. A few questions on this topic. People asking, do you offer any other types of apprenticeships, or is it just the engineering one? And do you offer any other levels of apprenticeships as well? I know like degree apprenticeships are getting a lot more popular. Anything like that within Network Rail, or any plans for that?
So our apprenticeship offering is definitely getting bigger and bigger. We do have a level 6 IT apprenticeship that has also gone live this Monday, actually. And that's mainly Milton Keynes London based, which is our head office. We also have recently introduced a level 2 signalling apprenticeship. And there are talks of a few more levels of different types of apprenticeships coming out, such as cyber apprenticeships, level 4 more advanced engineering apprenticeships. So it's definitely a space that is growing. What I would say, if anyone's interested in a few of the different types of apprentices, is follow us on Facebook, because we always give our latest information on there if you just type in Network Rail Careers, and check out the website periodically for the latest on the different types of apprenticeships that we'll be offering. And of course, to keep locked in onto Career Map also, because we always recruit via yourselves and the good folks at Career Map also.
Thanks for the plug, Amavir. Appreciate it. Is there anywhere for the guys to sort of, if they went to the Network Rail website, is there a way they could register for job alerts or anything like that?
Yes. So we do have a register your interest form on our webpage. If you literally go onto our website, choose a scheme that you're interested in, and there should be a link to register for more interest when we go live again.
Okay, thanks, Amavir. I'll just run through a couple of individual questions here from people. Akbar says, I have a university degree from the UK, but no GCSEs. Is he still eligible?
I think provided you've got, and again, it depends, structural engineering, that should be okay. What I would say in Akbar's case is, if he is interested in applying, if he pops through an application, and we can, our candidate management team can speak directly to him to understand what equivalence he has, because it may be a case if he's okay because of his engineering background. It just depends on what other equivalents you have.
Okay. Is there an email address for people to get in contact direct?
There is indeed. If you just bear with me a second, I'll tell you what I'll do, Simon, is if we carry on with the chats, and I'll pop the email address into the chat itself.
That'd be brilliant.
So
yeah,
so I can click it piece.
Okay, cool. Aya says, do you accept electronics as a science subject?
Again, it's provided you've got it's a GCSE equivalent. If it's purely electronics, if it's not electrical engineering, we might not, as long as there's an engineering element to it. Again, I wouldn't want to say without knowing a little bit more about the course itself.
Yeah.
It sounds like it may be okay, as long as it's not just pure electronics. There's an engineering element to it. It should be fine as an equivalent.
Okay. Alfie says, so if you have 3 GCSEs and a level 5 maths, are you okay to join?
Yes, that's no problem at all.
And Stella says, do you accept BTEC?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, as long as there's a level 2 and above. But what I would say is, if you check the website, and on there there'll be the full list of the equivalents that we do accept. There are a variety of different BTECs that we accept, but I would just double check the website so they've got the whole picture, if that makes sense.
Yep, brilliant. Robert says, are your apprenticeships from 18 plus only, or do you offer 16 plus too?
So at the moment, we offer it's 18 plus only. Now, the reason for that is because we're working on a live railway environment. For safety reasons, we have to ensure that you're 18th on the start date. But what I would say in that case is if he does go onto a website, and I might just put the link to the register your interest into the chat also.
Brilliant.
Once we're finished, if you register your details, then you'll be the first to know when we go live in a year or so, and then you can apply then.
Okay, thanks, some of it. Randy says, I'm a holder of 2 degrees outside of the UK, but I do not have a science subject. Would he be eligible too?
Again, I think as long as, depending on what his equivalents are from the GCSE perspective, if those match up, then that should be okay.
Okay, cool. Let's have a look at some more. Alexander says, I'm currently doing a motor vehicle course. Can that count as a science sort of engineering?
That should be fine, the motor vehicle course.
Okay, I'll run through a couple of things. With regards to the online application and the tests and assessment centres, is there anywhere the guys can do any sort of practicing for this? Any sort of mock tests or anything on the Network Rail website at all?
So there's no mock tests per se. What I would say is the situational judgment test it's designed to be quite intuitive in terms of your own personal beliefs and values. But in order to do well, have a read of the website first. So say, for example, because we have quite a safety emphasis, understanding that in your answers can only help you do well. And then when it comes to the interview side of things, I think as long as you're able to follow a STAR technique, and if you literally have a Google in terms of some of the questions that people ask around what we're after, so people with team working skills, etc., then that should help you prepare well for when you actually apply.
Okay, cool. One of the questions we get asked a lot is sort of progress after the apprenticeship is completed. Do you guarantee jobs after the apprenticeship is completed, and sort of what are the progression sort of opportunities there?
So we don't necessarily per se definitely guarantee jobs, if that makes sense, but pretty much all our apprentices go on to secure positions into the company afterwards, either an operative or technician role. So whilst I can't say absolutely you do, it's a very, very well trodden path, if that makes sense. And it's only if things were to go crazily wrong in the apprenticeship scheme that you may not, on the very rare chance that would happen. In terms of career progression, the world really is your oyster. Our own CEO started off as an apprentice when he first started out his career at Network Rail, and then we've had other very senior roles, so asset managers, depot managers, route directors, who all came through via the apprenticeship scheme. And the thing to note is our apprenticeship scheme, we've been running this scheme in particular, with the various guises that it's been, for over 10 to 15 years now. So there, we as a history on the railway have always run apprenticeships and brought young people through. So there is a lot of people in the business who have been former apprentices.
Excellent. A question here is, how many apprentices do you take on every year, and so how competitive is the application process?
So we run 2 intakes a year. So with the intake that we're live for at the moment is due to start for people to start in September. We then open again for applications around the August-September time, and that's for March. Now the numbers do vary depending on what the business need is in the local area, but We are always recruiting over 120 plus in each recruitment window. So you're looking at least 240, 250 apprentices each year. In terms of competition, because we ask you to live within an hour of your local depot that you apply for, some areas are more competitive than others. So you can imagine your sort of your Birminghams, your Liverpools, etc. are really competitive versus some places that are a little bit more remote, say your Hitchens of the likes, are not so much. So I would suggest if you are interested, particularly when it comes to our schemes, please apply sooner rather than later, because once we receive enough applications for certain locations, we do close.
Okay, thanks, Amavir. A lot of questions we get asked, especially with sort of engineering and construction roles, is do apprentices have to buy any equipment? And also, do you have to have a driving license?
So absolutely not. You will not have to buy any equipment at all. Anything you need will 100% be provided to you. Funny enough, even so, again, post-COVID world, the initial phase of our scheme, we run it's like it's a residential stay, and you stay at one of our residential purpose-built place in Coventry. It's really nice. It's basically like a hotel with an ensuite and everything else. But even there, all your meals, it's all paid for, all your uniforms all paid for, all your PPE is all paid for. There isn't anything that you have to personally pay for when it comes to equipment. And we think it'd be irresponsible of us to say otherwise, because you're coming to work for us and therefore you shouldn't have to pay for anything, especially when it comes to tools and things that you need for on the job. And then with a driving license we don't require you to have a driving license also, but we do say as long as you're within an hour's journey of your local depot, and take into considerations if you are, for example, working nights and you're relying on buses, that might not be feasible, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah. Obviously, salary is always a big topic for each of the different schemes with employers. Have you got any information about the pay for each of the schemes?
Yeah, sure, no problem at all. So if I start with so with the level 3 scheme, it's a little bit, it varies a little bit depending on the age, but essentially what you'll start off at is the first year starts off at £10,609. But once you complete your first year, you'll then have an additional £1,347 given to you as like a bonus. From there, the second year, if you're 18 to 20, the salary is £13,655. If you're 21 to 24, it's £14,561. And if you're 25, it's £15,380. In the third year, this then goes up to just over 16,000. And then apprentices the one thing I haven't caveated in that is there is the opportunity, and it's not mandatory, for things such as overtime work, weekend work, bank holidays, etc. And if you're to choose that, you do get enhancements and premiums on top of overtime pay, if that makes sense. So you'll be earning more. And then typically, so I did some analysis in terms of the average sort of base salary that apprentices go on to once they complete the apprenticeship, and you're looking at around the 30,000 mark. And again, that's base salary, not including any additional enhancements and overnights and weekend pays, etc. So it is pretty lucrative.
Yeah, brilliant. Have you got any examples of the sort of work that will be involved? Any projects that the guys might be involved with, anything to do with, HS2 or anything like that?
Yeah, sure. So what will happen is, depending on which path, so as part of the apprenticeship scheme, you will then go on to specialize in a certain discipline. So that might be track, overhead lines, signaling, telecoms, distribution and plant. Now, within that, so for example, if you're a track apprentice, you'll be working mainly on the physical tracks themselves, working as part of a team. You'll be out in all weathers, around the clock, maintaining the infrastructure. So that might be like optimizing rails, sleepers, etc. If you're part of the overhead lines, you'll be working on like over 10,000 miles of overhead power lines, making sure that they're working correctly in the correct position, and making sure the maintenance and repairs happening there. If you're in the signaling side of things, you'll be ensuring that our signaling system is working optimally, and that can vary from mechanical to electrical switches, etc. And then when it comes to telecoms, now a lot of people don't know we're the third biggest telecoms provider in the UK, and that doesn't. Then we use a variety of different software from radio, digital communications, fiber optics. It's an area of real growth at the moment, or even like GSM track radios, etc. And what it is so there are a lot of projects going on at the moment. Some of our apprentices have absolutely been involved with integrating, getting ready for HS2, as well as some of the other projects that are there. What happens is, depending on your local area, there's different upgrades and renewal plans that are going on. So there's absolutely so much to get involved with in a real nutshell.
Okay, thanks, Amber. Some people ask about the apprenticeship. Do they have to go to college to complete it?
So they don't go to college per se. What they'll do is part of the apprenticeship scheme. So you'll have your initial phase where a lot of the work you'll be doing theory and workshops, and that's at our training centres. And then you'll be sent to local training centres across the country where we'll help to where we'll teach all the sort of theory and the practical know-how that you need to know. So it's almost like our own college, if that makes sense.
Okay. And then we get asked quite a bit from females wanting to, have a look at, historically male-dominated industries like engineering, etc. What's the sort of gender balance, the split like at Network Rail?
So, like you say, Simon, historically this has always been more of a male-dominated role, but I think that's one of the areas that we're really pushing and we're really looking to improve, is about ensuring we have a more blended and more diverse workforce, because we believe what happens is the more people you can get from different backgrounds, but in terms of a male-female split, we get better ideas, you get newer innovations. So it's definitely an area where we're looking to encourage more females to apply. And I can just hand on heart say that those that have gone on and are successful, we do have a nicer mix now, and we try to ensure not only just for females but for everyone, we provide enough support systems in place, whether that's through, we've even just recently started recruiting for a role as a workforce coach, and what their sole job is to ensure apprentices on our scheme are completely supported from day one till the day that they leave the scheme, whether that's with any support they need in terms of support with the theory side of things, whether they just would like any support or just day-to-day checkups in terms of what they're doing on the ground when they're actually working. We're really trying to ensure anyone who's considering a place at Network Rail has the utmost support and guidance that they need to really thrive in the rail industry.
Okay, thanks. Ben's asking about, if I wanted to be a train driver, what would be the best route? I know you said Network Rail don't do that, but have you got any advice for Ben there?
If you're looking at train driving, what I'd probably suggest you do is, if you go on to some of the TOCs, so like the train operating companies, so the likes of Great Western, East Midlands Railway, etc., and just keep an eye out for when they go live. I know just from previous knowledge, it's quite a competitive field. So again, it's one I would recommend if it's an area you're looking to go into, checking websites on a periodic basis, registering their interest if they do offer the chance to get job alerts, to ensure that when they are live, you have a chance to put your name into the hat.
And we're also actually doing a webinar on Friday at 9 o'clock with an organisation called Routes into Rail. They actually might be able to give you some more advice there. And I think they've got a website called Routes into Rail, so have a look there. Kerry says, how long is the whole application process from sort of assessment centre to start date?
So the application process as a whole, once we try and get this done relatively quickly, but because of the volume of people, it can take a bit of time. Sort of within 3 months of application, you will know if you've got the job, and that'll be all the processes in between. And then once you've been to the assessment centre, within a week or two, we try and let you know whether you've been successful or not.
Okay, so quite quick, brilliant. William asked a good question here. He goes, what if I live by Google Maps 1 hour, 2 minutes away from a depot? Would he still be eligible, or would a sort of screening robot sort of just dismiss his application straight off the bat?
I think if you're that borderline and you can show that you're able to, depending on if it's I don't know, if it's a 1 hour walk and you can prove that you're going to drive by car, then that shouldn't be an issue. We take people that are very close. We have a team of people that manually assess the distances. So if you are borderline, we do check to see if you're actually, with people like that are so close, we do a manual check, and we check how you're going to get into the office, if that makes sense. But if it is a case of you're walking in, you're actually going to drive, then you should be fine. But the reason we do have to be quite strict, and we do have a slight wiggle room, is because of the safety perspective.
Okay. A few questions here about work experience. Is that something Network Rail offer, whether in the physical world or virtually?
So we do offer work experience, but we are also looking to go live with a Kickstart scheme as part of the government initiative very shortly. I would say keep your eyes peeled on the website and on our social channels to find out more. We're literally just finalising it, I believe, at the moment.
Excellent. Let's have a look. There's just 1 or 2 left, I think, now. Callum says, how do you get into the plant area of Network Rail?
I think the thing is depending on, so if you have a real interest in plant and you make that clear in your interview, depending on if there's a business need for the distribution and plant discipline in that area, we will do what we can to try and accommodate.
Excellent. And Alfie says, this is the last one. Are there any jobs in the Northwest region?
Yes, there is. There absolutely is. And if you go onto our website, pop in your postcode, see if there's one that's within an hour's travel time for you. You should find some.
Okay, and Pippa's just dropped one in. I think she asked before, but I didn't see it. So she's saying, do you offer marketing or advertising roles? You might have covered it.
Not as of yet as apprenticeships. If somebody was looking for that sort of role, I would just get you to check the Network Rail's careers website and see if there's any entry-specific web level positions available, because we do accept people, again, depending on your previous qualifications, etc. We do offer entry-level positions in those sort of areas too.
Okay. Alfie's just come back on the jobs in the Northwest. He's saying they don't come up when he sort of searches the website.
Right. So what's probably happened in that instance is, and this is related to the question about if you're applying for areas in popular locations, we may have already closed a few of those locations. We've literally, because it's National Apprenticeship Week, because we've just gone live, some of the more popular areas we've closed a few locations already. So what I'll do is, again, once this webinar's finished, I'll pop in the chat and register your interest, and you'll be the first to know when we go live for our next intake, which will be in September. So you can be first to the door, so to speak.
Okay. Did you say there was going to be an email address somewhere, Amavir?
Yes. Once literally as soon as we're done on the website, our webinar, I will pop it into the chat so everyone can access it.
Okay. Have you got any sort of final words you want to say to the guys, Amavir?
Just a massive thank you for everyone's time. Appreciate this. It's the middle of the day and everyone's obviously got different things going on. And really, just to give it your best and your all and give you your best shot and best of luck to everyone, whether that's applying for Network Rail or any other career opportunities. I know the way of the world at the moment is very much on its head, and times are quite tough for a lot of people. So honestly, just a massive best of luck to everyone.
Brilliant. Thanks for joining, Amavir. Really great session. Could you put the email address in the chat while I do the wrap up? Brilliant. Just say thanks for everyone who came today, and lots of really good questions. Just say that the session's been recorded, so if you want to refer to this at any time, you can go to the careermap.co.uk website, go to the Career Map Live section, and you'll see all the video presentations that we've done previously with clients, but also for National Apprenticeship Week. So feel free to log on there anytime you want. And just to say, we've got lots more webinars, live webinars coming up this week for National Apprenticeship Week. So if you go to www.nationalapprenticeshipweek.co.uk, you can have a look at what we've got left, who's coming up, and register if you're interested and come and join us. It'd be great to see you there. Amavir, a pleasure as always, and we'll let you all go now and stay safe. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.